V1. Rotate.
Alright, as you may have seen, it was pretty choppy down there at 350, so I've gone ahead and climbed up to 370. Seems to have smoothed out quite a bit. We can release the passengers again. So we're about halfway through our flight at this point, and I'm just checking the weather at Nice. It's pretty stable, and it's a wonderful day down in the south of France, or in the coast of France. Temperature's 18, dew point's 10, no wind whatsoever to speak of. Even the winds aloft are super calm. Clear day, 10 plus miles of visibility, no precipitation, standard pressure, looking like it's going to be a nice, smooth arrival into Nice. Still no ATC, but I'm holding out hope. Maybe something will spring up. Looking over at the airport overview chart, we have a pair of parallel runways. They're 0422s. Now, with the winds calm, most airports have preferential runways, and Nice is no exception. A little bit further up, we have our airport briefing, and if we scroll through a lot of this information, we have arrivals, 04 arrivals. Landings are preferred due to the meteorology, minima, and topography. They are used about 90% of the time. Runway 04 left is dedicated to landings. So there we have our answer and our plan. We're going to be landing on 04 left, unless the weather changes significantly, or unless we get ATC to tell us otherwise. Looking at our ILS chart for runway 04 left, it's pretty standard, nothing too serious, nothing too complicated. We do have terrain northwest of the field that we do have to contend with, this being a coastal airport. The inbound course is 045, the ILS frequency 109.95. Our missed approach is essentially a climbing right turn to track the 119 radial outbound from the Azure VOR. And our minimums, category C, are 210 feet baro or 200 feet radio altimeter. So nothing too complicated, pretty standard stuff. Gonna be some fun hand flying into this airfield. I'm looking forward to it. Let's jump back into the flight deck. So let's get set up. Well, a lot of things have already been set up for our approach, such as the barometric minimums of 210 on both sides. I've gone ahead and set up the nav radios. So we're tracking the Azure NDB, or VOR rather, for now, which, if you remember, is going to be our missed approach VOR. We're going to be tracking the 119 radial outbound from that. So that'll stay on nav 2. We're only planning a Cat 1 ILS at this point. So only one of the radios tuned into the ILS frequency, which will be our nav 1. So I've got on the standby, I've got our ILS frequency. The course is already in. I already mentioned the barometrics. So let's go ahead and plan our approach. Our last waypoint is Nisar on the flight plan. So what we'll do is we'll bring up both FMCs. We'll set this one over to, well, it's already set to plan. So if we go to FMC1 and step through all the way to, that was too far, Nisar, like so, we can put the range out a little bit. And on the right-hand side, we have our departure and arrivals page. We will plug in ILS 04 left. It is the Nisar 6 Romeo. So that adds a whole bunch of waypoints. Obepa, Lurga, Latin, Tunir, Nisar actually was the last one. So we've got Zerbi, Dotig, Vedek, then Amphu, then Tipik. We can go ahead and zoom in. And the last one we have here is MUS NDB, which I think is the Nice Côte d'Azur NDB, which I already have tuned, by the way, to the ADF. It's 428 on the ADF, so we can monitor that in a bit. We will go ahead and select the transition and execute that. That'll fill in a couple of our altitude restrictions. Go ahead and plug in the descent winds in our descent page. So if we go to descent forecast, I already put in the transition level, which is 050. And go ahead and put in the QNH, which is 1013. That goes there. Why didn't it? I need to pay more attention to what I'm doing. Come on, 013, like so. Enter. And the descent winds, let's do 340. 240. And 120. So 340, it's 259 at 41, 59 at 41. Wow, I really can't type today. It was 259. So go ahead and execute. That is the descent programmed in. We can check cruise. We've got top of descent in 122 nautical miles. If the weather gets choppy again, I might step it up to 390. The service ceiling of the 73 is 410. Doesn't look like now it's telling me that there's no descent path after the MUS NDB. That's fine with me. We'll plug in our own descent once we get to that point. As I was saying, if it does get choppy again, I might step it up to 390. The service ceiling of the 73 is 410. Doesn't look like we can get quite up to that today with the weights. That's pretty much it. So we've got the descent programmed in. Still quite a while to go. If we look at our progress page, to the field it's 254 now nautical miles. Landing with 7 tons of fuel, so a good, if you look at a good tailwind, 20 knot tailwind this entire flight. So we're making great time. We're about just over halfway through the flight. And that's pretty much it for the arrival. That is all programmed in. Just basically monitoring the fuel, monitoring the systems, make sure there's no failures. Probably be auto brakes 1, maybe 2, depending. We do want to vacate a little bit earlier because the terminal is basically, when we're landing on the 4s, the more runway that we consume on our landing, the farther we have to taxi back to the terminal. So between 1 and 2, we'll decide that a little bit later on in the flight. Other than that, pretty uneventful except for the turbulence. I'll catch you a little bit later in the flight. So, 5 nautical miles till top of descent. We can go ahead and reset the MCP. Let's see. 320 at Zerby. So let's do that. 320. Getting ahead of myself on the descent. 320. Initially. And we can descent now. Execute. Currently 7.8 tons of fuel on board. Progress page, we're expected to land with 7. So, take our current gross weight minus 0.8, which would put us at 120.4, like so. Take flaps 30. 129 is our VREF speed. Sorry, that's our landing speed, plus 5, so 134 for our VREF. And down we go. Just coming up to flight level 120, which was a restriction 120 or above at Tipic. Now we've got flight level 80 at the MUS NDB, and after that it's going to be down to 4,000 feet. So we'll set the QNH, even though it's 1013, so it's basically standard. 250 knots. So we're coming up to 10,000. Shiny switches forward. We'll get the passengers seated, like so. No ATC online, unfortunately, no other traffic, so we're all by ourselves here in the coast of France, which is nice because I get to enjoy this view all by myself. Just look at that sunset. A couple of little clouds, nothing to worry about. Everything's looking good. In the air, an hour and 37 minutes. We're going to be way ahead of schedule on our arrival. I did feed out a little bit of speed brake here just to keep the aircraft slow enough so that it can match the descent there. So you can see we're already starting to get above profile as it tries to descend and stay under 250 knots. So 80 at the Nice Côte d'Azur NDB, then down to 4,000, and it'll be our left turn to final. Nobody around, but I'm just going to announce our intentions very quickly on Unicom, make sure that everybody knows what we're doing. I'll be right back with you. Vertical profile's looking good. Speed's looking alright. Go ahead and turn the engine start switches to continuous. Get that part of the checklist done. Still more than, we're about 30 nautical miles from the VOR, which is just above the field anyways, or just about. So 30 miles to run. Still have a little bit of speed breakdown. Other than that, everything is looking just fantastic. Localizer capture. I'm going to start bringing that speed back. Start with 220. Bring up flaps 1. Flaps 1 traveling. Bring back to 200 now. Actually, go all the way down to 180. There's the glide slope diamond. Let's go ahead and bring up flaps 5. Traveling. We will bring out the rest of the shiny switches, like so. Runway turnoffs and logo, why not? Arm approach. Just waiting on gear and just waiting on final flaps for landing. Alright, back in the flight deck, so we can go ahead and arm the speed brakes. Let's see, overhead is configured. We can turn on the taxi light as well. Save us one thing to do when we're on the ground. Pressurization is good. Starter switches to continuous. I'm going to bump down to our final approach speed, 134. Start getting that speed down. Bring out flaps 30. Give it a helping hand of drag. There's the runway. Autopilot's coming out. My aircraft. Take the auto throttle as well. Bring up the yoke so you can see a little bit of what I'm doing. Add a little bit of up trim. 2500 is checked. Radio altimeter alive. A little bit more up trim. Speed's coming back nicely. This is so nice to do when there's no weather. A little bit extra power. This thing pretty much flies itself when you trim it nicely, and no no winds to fight with. You can see on our ND here, there's no wind to speak of, so everything's looking great. See, the terrain radar is, or the terrain display essentially is showing us that you know, we're getting below all of these peaks on our left-hand side. It's fine. We're not going in that general direction, but it's good to be aware. Glide slope is almost bang on. We're a little bit right of course. Correct a little bit. It's fine. Perfectly visual. A little bit of haze now. This is almost not exciting enough to make for good footage. Glide slope's bang on. Couldn't see the localizer because the yoke is hiding it. There it is. So we're coming back to the left as well. I'm happy. Nobody around.
1,000.
Speed's good. Approach is stable.
Decision height. Decision height.
Landing.
$100. 50. 30.
Throttles at idle.
10.
Flare. Too much of a flare. Floating. Ah. Floating. Oh, we're down. Reverse green decel. Could have taken that high speed. Take this exit here on the left. So, lights off. Clean up in a second. Mesdames et messieurs, bienvenue en France. Stop the clock. So, flaps coming up, speed brake coming down. Auto brakes off. Runway turn-offs can come off. Engine start switches back to off. I'm pretty happy with that. So we are going to go straight to ground power. So we can cut number 1, go menu, those actions, connections. Get the ground power installed. We'll get that up and running. And we can get rid of engine number 2. No need to use the APU when it's not required. Stop the clock. Release the passengers. And we made it. Anti-call can go off. Get a little bit more lighting in here. We will turn on the dome light. And that is us arrived in Nice. Encore une fois, merci de m'avoir accompagné on another adventure with Fly UK. We're rapidly approaching enough hours for Class D First Officer, and along with it, the 737-800 and Airbus 320 routes. I'm off to see the sights and sounds of the French Riviera, grab a good glass of wine, and eventually find my way to our next assigned departure airport. Until then, I wish you all blue skies, tailwinds, and I'll see you in the next episode.